Hello, this is a podfic of Story of Redemption on AO3, written by AnimeHairColors and certifiedthembo. I am AnimeHairColors, and in honor of the 5th anniversary of me starting this fic, I will be reading it to you. Before we begin, you need to be aware that this fic is rated mature, it has mentions of rape, pedophilia, and depictions of violence. Proceed with caution. With that out of the way, let's begin. Chapter 1. Lillian wept. She could feel the slimy quality of the chains around her hands. They smelled of blood. She'd long since learned that those chains were made to represent the blood of the people she had killed. Every person she had killed now were part of the chains pulling on her wrist. If she touched the individual chain links, she could see the face of who it represented. Sometimes she'd touch the chain link second closest to her right hand, just so she could see Ellen's face. Well, she could always see his face. In her mind's eye, he was always just about to be beheaded. But sometimes, when she held that chain in her fist, she could almost hear him sing, Lulila, the lullaby their mother sang when they were children. The cuffs on her ankles were made of a translucent substance. It had taken her much longer to figure out what they represent. But after an endless amount of time here in this room, endless time to reflect on her mistakes, she'd realized those cuffs on her ankles were made of the tears of the people she'd hurt emotionally. Alan had one of those too. She could see him crying over Michella's death. A bit further down, she could see Kyle and Clarith. She could see everything she'd done to hurt them. Lillian let out a scream of anguish. She knew that she had done awful things for the first 14 years of her life. She had tried to make up for it. It just wasn't enough. But what if you had another chance? A voice asked her. She looked up and saw a bright light. Another chance? She asked, voice almost a whisper. I put you here in, well, we'll call it purgatory, in order to make sure you learned your lesson. Lillian nodded. I promise I have. Please let me. She trailed off. Let her what? Out? After she did so many terrible things? No, that wouldn't be right. She was sure she spent years in this room going over every single mistake she'd ever made. She knew she didn't deserve that kind of mercy. Please let me see Alan, she said. Just once. I need to apologize. The god smiled. I have a better idea. I will send you back in time to the morning before you first tried to execute Lionheart. You will have another chance at life. This will allow you to not make so many mistakes and to heal the hurt that you have caused. Her eyes widened. That's all I ever wanted. Thank you, Lillian said quietly. She promised herself she would make the most of this. She wouldn't mess up again. There is one condition, the god said, holding up a finger. Anything. It didn't matter, so long as she got a second chance. She would do anything. You will still have all the memories of those who you hurt, as well as perfect memory of your past life, just to make sure you don't become selfish once again. Lillian took a deep breath. I understand. Lillian opened her eyes to her servant, her twin, Alan. He was shaking her awake. Lillian immediately began to cry. It was partly from relief, partly out of grief from how much she'd missed him. Her brother, who she hadn't seen in decades, was right there with her once again. Your Highness? Alan said, taken aback and honestly a bit panicked that his queen was crying so heavily first thing in the morning. Can I have a hug? Lillian said, tears streaming down her face. Of course, Your Highness, Alan said. He had never been asked this before, but being a servant for Lillian meant you learned to adapt. He wrapped his arms around her gently. She responded by grabbing him so tightly he let out a quiet oof as she pulled him even closer. Then she sobbed into his jacket. For for probably half an hour at least. By then she had calmed down enough to speak. "Thank you," she said in a whisper, throat raw from her crying. She began to loosen her grip, and he took that as permission to let her go. He tried to subtly flex his fingers and move his arms in a way that wouldn't draw too much attention. He was just trying to stop the numb, pins and needles feeling from having the limbs in such a crushing grip for so long. She, of course, noticed this. "Sorry about that," Rillian said, wincing. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "Are you all right, Your Highness?" Ellen said. He was really confused and a bit worried that she wouldn't want him to ask, preferring privacy, but at the same time, she had just cried for much longer than Alan had ever seen. I'm I'm happy you're here, that's all," she smiled. He smiled back, though he was still confused. "Where else would I be?" he asked. Then he immediately regretted it when a shadow fell over her expression. "Not sure, I suppose," she said at length, not convincing Alan in the slightest. "Did you have a nightmare, Your Highness?" Alan asked. That was the only reason he could imagine her crying like that first thing in the morning. "I suppose you could say that." "Do you want to talk about it?" Alan asked her, carefully, not wanting to overstep. "Perhaps later. I assume there was a reason you woke me up?" she asked. Then Alan remembered. She was going to be late. "Yes, Your Majesty. There is a meeting in—" He looked at the clock on the wall. 10 minutes. Your Majesty, I'm sorry. She waved away his apology. "It's quite all right, Len. It's my fault after all," she said. Then she began to get herself dressed. Alan just stared at her until she glanced back at him. "I never took you for a pervert, Alan," she said lightly. He blushed, bright red, and turned around. I am so sorry," he cut off as she laughed. "I'm teasing. Why did you look so shocked, though?" she said. The rustling of fabric made it clear she was still changing, so he didn't turn around. "I was just surprised you didn't use your servants this morning." Alan had never heard of Rillian dressing herself. To the best of his knowledge, she'd never even put on her own jewelry by herself. "Oh, I forgot I had those," she said sheepishly. "With all due respect," Alan began. "None. There is no due respect to me. You needn't be so formal, Len. Not in private, all right?" Rillian said. Uh, all right." He smiled a bit. The Queen had been so angry lately, almost constantly, and hadn't talked or played the same as she always had. She was growing up, as she put it. It seemed like that was no longer the case this morning. Alan was grateful for that. He would support her no matter what, but it still made him happy when she talked to him like they were both children. "I was just wondering how you managed to forget about your servants, something you've had all your life," he added. "I'm finished. You can turn around," Rillian said. "As for your question, I have had a long night." He turned around, a bit confused by her answer. He'd expected to see something off about the Queen's clothing, since she had likely never done it before, but it was as perfect as though the servants had done it. "How in the world—" Ellen started. "There is no time. Where is the meeting?" she asked. "Right. I'll show you," Ellen said. He walked towards the door, and she wordlessly followed.